Welcome to this course, Introduction to Cybersecurity Literacy. This is Lesson 11, Creating Strong Passwords. In this video, I will show you a few strategies for turning a weak password into a strong one. Let's say that you have just set up a new online account and you need to choose a password. Naturally, you want something that will be easy to remember, so you type the first thing that comes to mind, the name of your beloved Persian cat, Muffin. As it stands, this is a weak password. It's especially weak if you have pictures of Muffin plastered all over your social media page or anywhere else on the web, because attackers do their homework. They might research you before trying to guess your password. One way to strengthen this password would be to add a variety of different symbols. So far, it's written entirely in lowercase letters. It would help to add some capital letters, numbers, and other keyboard symbols. Okay, now we have a strong password, but it's so random that it's difficult to remember. How can we make this password both strong and memorable? One way to make a strong password memorable is to make it tell a story. Let's imagine that you adopted Muffin from the shelter on Christmas Day in 2012. Well, we could start that story with Muffin's name. And the animal shelter is sometimes called the Pound, so you could put a pound sign in there. And then you could shorten Christmas to just Moss. And then you could finish it off with the year, 2012. There you have it. That's a password that tells a story. You got Muffin from the Pound on Christmas in 2012. It's a story that you can remember, but one that other people are unlikely to guess. Notice that the password that we produced is long and contains a variety of symbols. Those are good things. Actually, this password is more than long enough. You could abbreviate some of the elements of this story if you wanted to. That might make it quicker to type. Another strategy for strengthening passwords is to replace letters with similar-looking symbols. For example, Muffin might become Muff!N. Strong passwords should be at least 8 characters long, so let's throw in a meaningful number. We'll use 12 because you adopted Muffin in 2012. There. We have once again created a reasonably strong password. You could also try using a sentence instead of a word as your password. For example, start with the sentence, Muffin likes yarn and treats. That would be a long password, and you might not want to type that much every time you sign into your new account. To shorten it, just take the first letter of each word and use that string of letters as your base password. From that base, you could substitute a symbol or two and maybe add a meaningful number. And presto, you have created a strong password. Another principle to consider is substituting sound-alikes for conventional spellings. So maybe I love Muffin could become something like this. Or you could try using symbols to separate words. For example, maybe Muffin is great could become something like this. One way to make your password especially memorable is to base it on memorable song lyrics or movie lines. For example, Muffin's buying a stairway to heaven might be shortened to this. And then you could substitute characters and add meaningful numbers like this. As you can see, there are a lot of different ways to compose memorable passwords that are at least 8 characters long and that use a lot of different symbols. Now that you know what to do, I'm going to share a few tactics to avoid. Avoid trivial passwords. Some of the most common passwords are password, 12345, the home row keys ASDFJKL, and let me in. These are all weak passwords. If somebody ever tries to break into one of your accounts, these will be among the first passwords that they try. Avoid relying on keyboard patterns for your password. For example, we have already seen that the keyboard pattern-based passwords 12345 and ASDFJKL are both weak. The password left bracket SDDEPTF is also weak for similar reasons. Can you see what's wrong with it? Well, let's take a look. You see, the word password is an exceptionally common and exceptionally weak password, and it's typed like this: PASSWORD. Now, some people think it's clever to shift their hands one key to the right and then to move their fingers as if they're typing the word password. Left bracket SDDEPTF. Cybercriminals are aware of this keyboard-based password trick and others like it. You're better off avoiding keyboard pattern-based passwords altogether. Finally, avoid the passwords that we discussed in this video, and avoid passwords that you see in any other how to choose a password tutorial that you've ever seen before. Cybercriminals seek out these tutorials, and they add the passwords that they find to their lists of common passwords. So, although this tutorial demonstrates good password creation principles, the passwords themselves are weak by virtue of their being shared with the public. Okay, that's all of the password creation tips I have for you for today. I hope this gives you an idea of what works and what doesn't work. In the next lesson, I'm going to give you some advice for managing your passwords. Some people, in fact maybe most people, have trouble keeping track of all their passwords because they just have so many of them. The next lesson is going to give you tips for dealing with that kind of problem. Welcome to this course, Introduction to Cybersecurity Literacy. This is Lesson 12, Managing Passwords. Many of you have probably heard it said that you should have a strong, unique password for each of your various password-protected accounts and devices. And you have probably also heard that you should change your passwords frequently, and never, ever write down your passwords. But let's be practical. Obviously, taking all these recommendations together creates problems for your memory. Most of us can't remember an array of complex, constantly changing passwords, at least not without some help. So in this video, I'm going to share 3 tips for practical password management. Securely record your passwords, rank your passwords, and use password management software. Password management tip number 1 is to securely record your passwords. You may have heard before that you should never write your passwords down. To that, I say never say never. It's okay to record your passwords, you should just be thoughtful and secure about it. Of course, it's not secure to write your password down on a sticky note that you keep near your desk. And because computers are easy to search, it's not usually secure to keep your passwords in a simple computer folder. So if you write your passwords down, consider using a pen and paper rather than writing them on a document on your computer. And keep them in a secret, secure place. Just in case your password log is compromised, you should be sneaky about the way that you write them down. Don't label them as passwords. And don't clearly label which passwords go to which accounts. Whenever possible, use some kind of keyword or code that only you will understand. In this example, I've embedded password clues into a phony and somewhat confusing guest list for a party. You should be able to come up with your own private system of clues that works for you. Something that you understand and something that you can remember. Password management tip number 2 is to rank your passwords. One way to cut down on the number of passwords that you have to remember is to rank your accounts into 3 tiers and to treat your passwords differently depending on which tier it falls into. In the first tier are the accounts where you have the most at stake. For example, your primary email account and your financial accounts would be Tier 1 accounts. For these accounts, you should choose a strong, unique password for each account and make a standing appointment with yourself to change these passwords every 6 months. In the second tier are the accounts where you have a medium amount at stake. For example, with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts, you probably have a medium amount at stake. These accounts are full of private information, but they can't normally be used to defraud you directly. People can't steal from you using Facebook, at least not yet. For these accounts, you should choose strong, unique passwords and make a standing appointment with yourself to change them once a year. For these accounts, instead of composing whole new passwords for every account, it might make sense to simply cycle through your passwords. For example, maybe you make your old Facebook password become your new Twitter password, and maybe your old Twitter password becomes your new Instagram password, and so on. In the third tier are accounts where you have little at stake. For accounts where you feel like you have little at stake, for example, maybe the login information that you use for an online newspaper, you should choose a strong password and just reuse it across several accounts. It's not really necessary to change the passwords on these lowest security accounts unless you have reason to believe that one of them has been compromised. If you think that an account has been compromised, you should change the password and also change the answers to any of your security questions that are associated with that account. If the account isn't particularly important to you anyway, then you might consider just deleting it altogether and starting over with a new account. Password management tip number 3 is to use password management software. Web browsers provide the option of remembering passwords for you, and this can be helpful. If your web browser remembers your passwords for you, then you're unlikely to forget your passwords. Also, the web browser will probably automatically fill in the passwords for you, which means you don't have to type your password quite so frequently. Typing your password less frequently makes you less vulnerable to, say, a keylogging attack, which is a kind of attack where cybercriminals use special hardware or special software to record the keystrokes on your computer. Of course, relying on your web browser to remember your passwords has its trade-offs. If your web browser stores all of your passwords, then anybody who gains access to your web browser also has access to your passwords. For this reason, if you're going to allow your web browser to remember your passwords for you, then it's a good idea to password protect your web browser itself. Most web browsers have security settings that allow you to set up a password protected account for the browser itself. You may also consider using another kind of password management software. For example, the Firefox add-on LastPass will generate strong passwords and remember them for you. But once again, using such software does have trade-offs. The management software itself becomes a single point of failure. Whether you're using a web browser or a web browser add-on to manage your passwords, these management programs are usually accessible by one single master password. If that master password to become lost, stolen, or shared, then all of your accounts could be compromised. Many security experts recommend that people use password management software, and so it is a good idea, but you still have to be very careful with your master password. Okay, that's all I have for you for now concerning password management. We've covered 3 tips in this video: to securely record your passwords, to rank your passwords, and to use password management software. I hope these 3 tips help you to find a password management strategy that works well for you. In the next video, we're going to begin learning about email and some of the security issues that come with it.